Please remain standing and move right forward. I'm going to have to condense the completion of tolerance and something like that. Please join us in the team instruction then. So, please join us in saying the pledge of allegiance.
One nation.
You may be seated. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Harnett. I'm the Valley resident of the Federation of Freedom and Teaching. I'm also a grandchild of Ivan. I'm really really calling today as we observe the Yom Hashoah on our Veterans Day. It's earlier this week, but it's really a privilege to be with all of you here today. I'm going to go forward our country's president, Jerry Barker, to formally welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi Burnett. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to the congregation, Bethel Israel, and Rabbi Eric Woodward for hosting us today. Welcome to our distinguished guest, General Lamont, Governor Mayor Elker, State Representatives Mary Muhlenberg, and Pat Little. And thank you so much to the members of the Holocaust Memory Committee, chaired by Casey Borkin. On this solemn day, we remember the murder of 6 million Jews for no reason other than check hatred. It is important to remind ourselves that hate based on different skin color, different sexual orientation, different politics, different abilities, different ways of speaking, and different religions. It has no place in our world. There's a world famous quote by a German Lutheran pastor, which is commonly displayed at the U.S. Holocaust Museum. And Martin Niemöller wrote, and many of you probably know, first they came to the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came to the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came to the Jews. I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there's no one left to speak for me. We must speak up and we must speak out. We must speak out in memory for all those who died for no reason other than religious beliefs. We speak out in recognition for all those who today are still victims of hate and injustice. We speak out to the people of Ukraine and too many other countries. And we speak out for those who are unable to speak for themselves. Your Jewish Federation of Greater New Haven is dedicated to never forgetting about the past and to put along with caring the world and to document charity and social justice. Protect and enhance the well-being of Jews in Greater New Haven and worldwide, and speak out against anti-Semitism and hate in all its insidious forms. Today we remind ourselves of the horrors that people in governments can perpetrate. And for all those who have suffered and died, we ask that they never shall be forgotten. Thank you. And Mayor Elder. Good morning, everyone. Very grateful to be here, sharing, let's say, a very important moment of remembrance for someone of us. When you step back and I step back and think about the past 3 years since I've been there, and I think about I'm 47 years old. 30 years ago, you had asked me, would we continue to see hate in our community, people dividing us, highlighting the differences among us as opposed to getting it together? I would have said no, of course. In 30 years, we would continue on the trajectory of coming together, supporting one another, focusing on what unites us rather than divides us. In these past 3 years since I've been mayor, I've seen countless instances across the nation and the world of individuals and groups that continue to divide us. And whether it is attacks on the tree in West Bengal, whether it is small, that seem like small, the swastika on the Yale construction site, they're filled with all too often examples of hate of the lives of Christ. I've also seen countless examples of people coming together, particularly, and I think that we must be proud as a community, not just because we protect each other, meaning our own groups when we are attacked, but we protect each other across groups as well. Every time there has been an attack on any group, whether Black, Asian American, Muslim, Brown, I called the Jewish Federation and invited them, you, to come together to support, to call out hate, to support what's right, what's good, what's human. And every time we will step up, because we have stepped up. What was said earlier about all too often in the past, people have only protected their own community but not others. May have been true, but in the kingdom, we stand together united as a community in that state. More than 6 million people. When you think about what today's world will be, I would not lost those more than 6 million people. How many more people would be among us at the Senate? What kind of impact, innovation, support that might give our community? It's an incredible loss, and we must never, ever forget. We have much work ahead of us. That's clear. We have much work ahead of us. But each day I am optimistic at the example that we have so many people coming together to support us. We will not forget. We will not forget. And we will work together to make our community the best. I have a proclamation here from the city of Haven that I'd like to offer. Whereas from 1932 to 1945, during World War II, 6 million or more Jewish people were murdered in the Nazi Holocaust as part of a systematic state-sponsored genocide, with millions of men, women, and children perishing as victims of Nazi racial crime.
Whereas the residents of the community pause and recognize the process committed to such orders are never repeated and collectively mourn the deaths of suffering and strive to pursue the truth of all that on us all and forsakes us to them. Whereas the universal resolve, with the universal resolve, the residents of the community dedicate themselves to the principles of international justice for all and condemn discrimination in any manifestation or treacherous context at this moment of impression, Yahrzeit and insight. Whereas pursuant to an act of Congress, April 18, 2022, was designated a day of remembrance of victims of the Nazi Holocaust, and we gave them in countless other communities throughout America and other countries, our sister of this international service, also known as the the mourning the death and destruction of countless instances and proclaim never again. Now therefore do I, as America, city in memory of the victims of the Holocaust and of more recent targeted killings stemming from anti-Semitism and racism, fervently hope that all peoples and all nations would strive for open innovation and access in humanity through mutual respect, education, and justice. And hereby proclaim this day, April 8th, 2023, as a day of remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And speaking of our partnership with the city of Mayor Hoffman and the city of the United States, I'm going to forward this kind of building, we're going to do it, we're going to share some thinking, we're going to see that as well. Ready.
Good afternoon, we have how we on one hand, we have with us a citation coming to North Assembly, which should have a federal American together. And the citation and the proclamations from the government will agree to the weather. So I will read very briefly. Introduced by the beginning notice to make the recognition of the value of work with food preparation. For members of the Jewish community, and across the world. Your promise to ensure the tragedies of the Holocaust never and certainly endeavors and educating and remember generations such as your elderly young people. We wish you a fellow.
The entire membership extends the very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope of the continued success. It is 23rd day of February. Yeah, all right. That's right. Sitting today, and we will enter with breakfast. The state capital are presented by President Greenham, Martin County, Matt Ritter, Speaker of the House, and Stephanie Thomas, Secretary. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. I will also read the proclamation to the governor, which is again another day, and just nothing as a someone who is mostly of Irish Catholic ancestry, my great grandfather and his brother were 1 year in North Sea, and then got a ship to get away from the crisis of Iraq. So I always worry about the, but it's the families up there, although they were closer to the Netherlands, I think most of them left, but, in my own experience, with the people who I had the gift of knowing, many of the people who were witnesses to those things, the killing, the treatment, the doing, over the vessel, who, with a refugee during this first round, and that's why. And, for those of us who do not have those, we have an extra to learn and to think about how to pass on what our obligation is to make sure that when we do that, we might have to be that you could help us to start with as a country. State of Connecticut by His Excellency Mayor Vermont statement. Whereas on April 18, 2023, the State of Israel and Jewish people around the world will commemorate Yom Hashoah, Holocaust Memorial, and Remembrance Day. And from 1933 to 1945, 6 million Jews were murdered in the Nazi Holocaust as a part of this systematic program of genocide. And millions of other people perished as victims of Nazism. Whereas we must never forget the horrific events of the Holocaust and teach them to our children. And never forget those killed purely because of their identity and faith. Whereas anti-Semitism is an evil that threatens not only those who subscribe to the Jewish faith, but all people, no matter who they are background, strong to the core values that bind Americans together. Now, therefore, I recommend government of the state of Connecticut to provide system correcting 2023 Holocaust.
Thank you so much. Good, your notice as a new conversation, I found out that the memorial that we have here on the Avenue, the first Holocaust memorial in the country, and we represented some of the leaders in this community and our Holocaust membership. I'm pushing that memorial forward because our hope today is to see that this memorial doesn't bring inside, but recognizing the support that we've had for so many years, so many decades, for our friends in the legislature and across the state. We so appreciate them. I just want to go forward, speaking with the Holocaust Memorial Committee. We should be part of the Holocaust Memorial Committee, more long term as well to begin our formal program.
And my question is, can everyone hear me? The American Renaissance, the American Freedom Party, the Council of Conservative Citizens, the National Alliance, the National Vanguard, the Patriot Front, the Alt-Right, the Proud Boys, the KKK, the National Socialist Movement, good old-fashioned neo-Nazis. Today is a buyer's market in America for hate. And whereas in the past you may have had to shave your head, put on a sheet to live that lifestyle, today's new models of hate are much more comfortable, more mainstream, and seemingly easier to work with people's busy modern thought. What was once cringe behavior is now, sadly, harmful. Tired of all these immigrants? Come on, talk with us. Coastal elites keep going, we're getting closer. A global cabal
entertainment and banking leaders, you're on the right track, and we've got a Facebook group. At the heart of it all, always the same racist, anti-Semitic tropes that have taken around the globe for 1,000 years. Sometimes it's a layer or two beneath the most obvious discourse, and sometimes people aren't even aware that they are participating. But it's always there, and not knowing who's no excuse. It's the Jews. It's always the Jews at the end of their day. Worldwide increases of anti-Semitic hate crimes decline again and again. That we move down. That's what I'm. In the United States in 2023, we hit a new high of anti-Semitic incidents. That's up 36%, which include acts of vandalism, cyber harassment, all manner, and more than 111 acts of physical harm. Old and once thought out of magic conspiracy, such as the Jewish capitalist global cabals, and other types of hate speech. If anyone wondering why they were taking the Jews will not replace us, it's always the Jews. They've been normalized here in our country as matters for debate and not outright dismissed. When needed, climb into the gutters or venture into the darkest corners of the internet to find these old tropes alive and well. We hear them on our mainstream news programs every other week, coming out of the mouth of our elected officials, and spray painted on the schools and shows of our neighborhoods. They are, as they did say, saying the quiet part out loud. The dog whistle has become a call to arms, audible to all of us. Should be here to listen. We must recognize. We must speak truth to power even when it's unpleasant or unpopular. We are the company that we keep. Vigilance, not tolerance, is our virtue. But today it is both.
By learning and relearning what happened to our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and communities. We reinforce our resolve today to ensure never again, even as we are reminded on an ever-increasing frequent basis that the threats of anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred are not only real, but all around us. We're so fortunate to have the Boy Scouts from 241 and BBYO kids involved in our observance today. They are a reminder of the survival of the Jewish people, of course. However, this observance is also an opportunity for all of us to tell this generation that we are with them as they encounter these threats. If they each have not already been targeted or witnessed anti-Semitism firsthand, the sad reality is they will surely need the tools to face it in the near future. Our hope is that by remembering the Shoah, we can reinforce our daily resolve with everything in our power to ensure never again.
Thank you, Bruce and Stacy. At this point, I'll invite forward Rabbi Herb Brockman, Rabbi Emeritus, Congregation Mission of Israel, to share an invitation with us.
"80 years ago, in 1 month, March 1943, an overflow crowd of 40,000 people gathered in Madison Square Garden. 4 years earlier, 20,000 German Americans, part of the Bund, rallied in that same spot in support of the Nazi government. But 4 years later, American Jews and other Americans had come to say Kaddish for what was then the reportedly 2 million Jews that had already been murdered. Paul Muni, Edward G. Robinson, and Jacob Ben-Ami, famous Jewish movie stars, along with 200 members of Congress, 7 Supreme Court justices, and Eleanor Roosevelt, gathered to, quote, stir the world to stop the slaughter of a people by the Germans. A poll that had just been taken 2 months earlier found that 52% of Americans didn't believe the Holocaust was actually happening. That event was intended to suggest otherwise. The evening was to be called Action, Not Pity. Later, it would become known as We Shall Never Die. That night, Paul Muni said these words: the Germans have promised to deliver to the world by the end of the year a Christmas package of 4 million dead Jews. But this is not a Jewish problem. It is a problem that belongs to humanity. It is a challenge to the soul of man. The invocation that evening was delivered by Jacob Ben-Ami. He prayed, Almighty God, Father of the poor and the weak, strength of the righteous and hope of all who dream of goodness and justice, we are here to say prayers for the 2 million who have been killed in Europe because they simply bear the name of your first children, the Jewish people. We are not here, however, to weep for them. We are here to honor them, to proclaim the victory of their dying. For in our testament are written the words of the prophet of Israel, Habakkuk. They shall never die. They were unarmed, but we are not. The Nazis nearly succeeded beyond their expectations, but not quite. That's what we are doing here today. And I say this, we are here to proclaim we shall never die. Because now, 80 years later, we are here to take up the call, to take up the pledge. On the day that is recognized by the United Nations Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is in January, every year, an IAF, an Israel Air Force jet fighter, with the Magen David on its side, flies low over Auschwitz. And as it does, the Israeli pilot declares over a loudspeaker, Anachnu po, we are here. We are here to the spirit of those murdered below and to all of us today to proclaim Anachnu po. We declare this today, and it is our pledge today. It is our calling, our invocation today. With blessings upon all who perished in the Holocaust, with the blessings of comfort for all those who mourn, whether here or in Israel, in all places where violence reigns, because the mayor is correct. When violence and hate is shown in our community, we as Jews must always proclaim, Anachnu po, we are here. That is our pledge. For the sake of the soul of man, we take up this eternal promise to remember, to never forget, to survive. Anachnu po, we are here.
Thank you, Rabbi Brockman. At this point, I'm going to invite forward members of our Holocaust Memory Committee, families of survivors, Harry Rosenberg, Anna Lehrer, Tanya Melamed, Kate Shepard, Bruce and Stacy, and Doris Zelinsky from our 6 memorial candidates. I notice we have one additional candle there on the table. A reminder of what so many of our speakers have spoken about, the fact that the Holocaust is unfortunately not just a memory, but it's very present. We see remnants, we see reflections, we see echoes to our day. We see that darkness and we commit ourselves to be that light in the darkness, because even a little bit of light can cast out immense darkness. And so we invite members of BBYO Connecticut to light that one additional candle symbolizing the lights that we all strive to be in our generation and generations to come. Well, and I'm honored to invite forward our governor, Ned Lamont, to share a few words with us.
Thank you, Rabbi. Say to the Boy Scouts and BBYO, all the young people here, this is why you can't forget. This is why you've got to remember. This is why you have to stand up every day for what's right. Sometimes maybe your mom and dad tell you silence is golden, but not when you're confronted with evil. And I think you heard from the mayor and some others that we had a virus running through our country. It's called COVID. There's another virus. It's called racism. It's called anti-Semitism. Maybe it starts with just a comment. Maybe it starts with somebody who thinks they're being funny, or maybe it's just somebody who's being a jerk and mean. You don't take that with silence. Speak up. And our country, we didn't speak up when we had an opportunity to speak up. We didn't speak up after Kristallnacht, which is the night of the broken glass, 1938. And the world looked and didn't act. And then it was just 6 months later that the St. Louis set sail with almost 1,000 Jewish refugees looking for freedom and escape from persecution in Nazi Germany. And that boat wandered, went to Cuba, where they were turned back. That boat went to southern Florida, where they could see the lights of Miami. Nobody welcomed them there. And the silence was deafening. And they went back on to St. Louis. Britain took some of the refugees. The rest went to places like France and Belgium, where the Nazis soon took over. And hundreds of those folks came looking for freedom in the New World, died in the Holocaust. That's why we're here today. That's why we remember. That's why we never forget. That's why it's so important young people stand up and remember what your parents and maybe your grandparents, great-grandparents told you. We went through. Michael and I went to Israel on a trade mission about a year ago. And it was a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses. But went to Yad Vashem. And I'm an old wasp. And we have sort of a stiff upper lip. And I was sobbing. And what those memorials, what that Holocaust Museum reminds you of, this is real. These are not numbers. This is not the number 6 million. You saw the faces of the little boys and little girls. You saw the piles of shoes. And you realized that was evil. You've got to stand up. And silence is not golden. And that's why we're here today. God bless you all.
The governor touched on, we have that responsibility to rise up, to be that light. And even in times of incredible darkness, we remember those righteous among the nations who did stand up for what was right and risked their lives very often to save their neighbors, to save their friends. And so we're honored to invite forward Jesse Westcott, who is an incredible friend of our Jewish community from his perch at the Towers, always supporting the Jewish community and the Holocaust Memorial and the residents, the many Jewish residents and all residents of the Towers. And so Jesse's going to read Home the Bystander for us today.
First, they came for the communists, and I did not object, for I was not a communist. And then they came for the socialists, and I did not object, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the labor leaders, and I did not object, because I was not a labor leader. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not object, because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to object.
Thank you, Jesse. So we have a special privilege to welcome forward Vern Feitelson to honor the liberators with the placing of a single flower in a vase. So a single white flower representing the liberators who came and liberated the camps. So I'll invite Norman forward to place the flower in the vase. Thank you, Norman. My bad for 98 years old. Good. Good. So we're going to invite forward our keynote speaker. Many of you know a familiar face for so many years in our community, Margie Shapiro, who worked across the state through her work with the Anti-Defamation of the ADL to spread Holocaust and genocide education throughout the schools, and she'll be introduced by Doris Zelensky, chair of our Holocaust memory.
Good afternoon. So the rain has moved us a little further west, and we're not at the memorial. We can go back to next year. And as someone said earlier, it's the first one that was built in the whole country on public land. Quite amazing. And Harry Rosenberg's dad, Anna Lear, their family, a lot of the people who sit here today are the children of the people, Bruce, Jason, of people who got together in the 70s, and they envisioned and built that memorial because they gave us legacy and purpose. And legacy and purpose is really what Margie is all about. And she's a tremendous speaker to have, to really remember what we have in New Haven as legacy and purpose. In a lot of ways, her work has been to light a memorial candle. She has educated thousands and thousands of Connecticut students, much like the students who are sitting here today. She's educated educators, and she's honed, made almost perfect curricula that we use to teach about the Holocaust as a basis for understanding the dangers of hate and the evil of really thinking about anyone else as other, as different, as worthy of dislike, or worse, murder. So I'm thrilled to introduce Margie because I've known Echoes and Reflections and a lot of the work that she has left in Connecticut. And I hope you welcome her as happily as I do to give us a little bit more insight and empathy and remembrance about the legacy and the resilience that was left to us by the people who nearly 50 years ago conceived of the memorial and then went ahead, shook hands with the mayor, and actually built it. So with that, I'm going to turn on.
My mother had a secret dream to live forever. I heard these words from the son of a Holocaust survivor during an Adopt a Survivor program at the JCC. Perhaps he's here today. He explained that his mother had this dream to live forever from the time she was a little girl. In her 80s, she continued to share her dream with everyone. Friends, strangers, even the man who delivered her wheelchair. She had recently passed away, and he challenged each of us, especially the teens, with the following call to action. Each of us must share the stories and lessons from survivors, so my mother's dream to live forever can come true. Today we commemorate Yom Hashoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. And we must again commit to telling the stories that we learn from survivors, to keep their invaluable messages alive, and to connect these stories of the past to the fight against anti-Semitism and hate today, to build a better world. As the number of Holocaust survivors dwindle, as the reality of a world without survivors draws near, it is a responsibility that belongs to each of us. We need to work hard to act so that this survivor's message comes true, that the survivors and the 6 million who were murdered did not die in vain, that their words and lessons and lives are remembered. My name is Margie Lipsha Shapiro. I recently retired from 32 years at ADL, where I devoted much of my time to being an educator, to teaching the impact of indifference and prejudice and hate. In 2007, I was tasked with bringing ADL's new Holocaust education program, Echoes and Reflections, to Connecticut educators. This multimedia curriculum created by ADL in conjunction with the Shoah Foundation and Yad Vashem was already receiving rave reviews. My goal was to develop strategies to engage teachers so that they would be motivated and equipped to teach this complex material to today's students, to charge them with the goal of having the lessons stick by impacting their attitudes and behaviors. I believe that my efforts have been successful. What I never expected was that my own life would be dramatically impacted as a result of becoming a Holocaust educator. To enhance my learning, I was granted the opportunity to participate in the March of the Living. My mentor and friend, the extraordinary Jewish educator that we all love, Sidney Perry, made this possible, and I am forever grateful. There are many elements to success in engaging teachers. I will identify and discuss 3 of the main strategies I employ. The first strategy was to enlist the aid of a truly passionate, talented, and very experienced Holocaust educator, my dear friend, Dr. Lauren Kempton. Together, we have reached over 1,500 teachers from urban, suburban, rural, public, and independent schools through full-day meaningful programs. It has been an extraordinary journey. Lauren introduced me to my second strategy, which she learned from her mentor, the unforgettable Holocaust survivor, Vlad Demid. Teach the Holocaust from the perspective of spiritual and cultural resistance in the face of oppression. This was a game changer. Through lessons from the Echoes and Reflections curriculum, combined with stories from survivors about resistance, we challenged and inspired educators to teach this unique perspective. If you haven't studied spiritual and cultural resistance during the Holocaust, I invite you. No, I urge you to do so. Briefly, spiritual and cultural resistance refers to attempts by Jewish people to maintain their humanity and Jewish values in spite of Nazi dehumanization, degradation, and worse. Jews, finding the inner strength and determination to examine their situation and try and find meaning, perspective, and mechanisms for survival in the events that controlled their very existence. Resistance is not only the struggle against, but it is also the struggle for. In ghettos and camps, Jews struggled for humanity, for culture, for normalcy, and for life. Resistance included secret religious activities, like having a service, even organizing high holiday services. They studied with rabbis and teachers in secret and sacrificed bits of fat they otherwise could have eaten for use as candles to commemorate Jewish holidays. The Nazis could take their lives, but for many, they could not take their faith. Education was a form of resistance. Teachers secretly taught students in the ghettos. Parents talked to their children about books and Jewish values and tried to teach them ways to cope. Adults maintained an intellectual life in the ghetto, including books and discussions. This education conveyed the message that there would be a Jewish future. The Nazis' goal was to destroy the Jewish spirit. Jews responded through cultural resistance. They took up a pen and wrote diaries. Others used a paintbrush or a musical instrument. They provided moments of spiritual nourishment that helped people forget the hunger and misery. And perhaps most important, it gave people the sense that they needed to mark the moment because there must be a future out there that will look back on them. And there were ingenious examples of sabotage by Jews in slave labor, working in the factories, making bullets or sewing uniforms or building submarines. This is resistance. Even imagination was resistance. Resistance was the ability of some Jews to imagine a future when they were living in an unimaginable present, a future where they would eat a piece of fruit, see their family, fall in love, have children. As I said, placing the teaching of resistance in the heart of Holocaust education, this focus on the bravery of Jews is a game changer. By introducing students to examples of resistance and leading discussions about how Jews preserved a sense of self in impossible conditions of dehumanization and degradation and hate, many students are able to relate to and therefore are more interested in learning about the Holocaust, especially students who are fighting for survival themselves. I will share one example of teaching about resistance to students. A few months before the pandemic, following a series of anti-Semitic incidents at a high school near here, Rabbi Wainhouse and I organized a visit for a group of students to an important exhibit at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York entitled Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away. Among the 700 objects on display was one that screamed its message of hope in the face of hate and will remain seared in my memory forever. It provided the perfect teaching moment. The object was a tiny hair clip made of scraps of metal. Shaved bald, dressed in rags, and tattooed with a number, the prisoners tried to hold on to a sense of identity and dignity. Like most of the women prisoners, 16-year-old Ruth Grunberger agonized over the loss of her hair. While being forced to make airplane parts in an Auschwitz factory, Ruth created the only possession she would hold on to throughout her entire ordeal, a tiny metal cone less than 2 inches tall with 6 skinny teeth that she hoped would one day hold her hair in place. I saw some scraps of metal and I made it myself that cone, she said. I figured my hair is going to grow back and I will need it. A young woman who held tightly to hope for a future day when once again she would have hair and freedom. This was a woman who planned to live. That one object exemplified the resistance of a young woman. Her story will undoubtedly stay with the students. The third strategy I employ has been to include Holocaust survivor speakers or children of survivors as part of our day-long program. Each Holocaust survivor touches our souls. Their treasures, their lessons hold huge value for educators, students, and every one of us. Nearly every survivor willing to share their story shared this one message, one surprising message, considering what they endured. Never hate. Hatred only breeds hatred. Here are 4 of the myriad of life lessons filled with wisdom that survivors shared with teachers and students. 1, choose your attitude and choice of action when responding to situations. Although we have no control over the attitudes and behaviors of others, we can choose how we react in any given situation, even in the most horrendous circumstances, as taught by Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist Dr. Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing, your freedom to choose how you will respond to any situation. 2, finding beauty in the ordinary. Survivor Gerda Weissman Klein of blessed memory spoke for those who never lived to see what she described as the magic of a boring evening at home. Throughout the horrors of Auschwitz and the death march, she envisioned and longed for what most of us take for granted. One ordinary evening, loved ones, just being together. 3, the value of creating a support network. We all cope better with life's challenges when we do not face them alone. Lauren taught teachers about camp sisters, women who were often not related, but worked closely with each other to help one another survive. Here is one example of the power of connection and support. On December 12, 1944, on her 20th birthday, Fania Feiner received a heart-shaped booklet as a birthday card from 18 fellow Auschwitz inmates. The sheets were glued together using a mix of bread and water. These women had banded together and gave up some of their food rations to write birthday wishes and messages of hope. If they had been caught, they would have faced beating or instant death. The booklet's 8 pages are filled with birthday wishes and messages of hope in Polish, Hebrew, German, and French. It gave all of them the will to live another day. 4, hope and perseverance. The indefatigable survivor, Anita Shore, of blessed memory, was our most frequent speaker. She implored us to stand strong, to persevere, and to never lose hope that things will improve. Anita Shore stood up to the infamous Dr. Mengele. Despite tremendous hardships in the Holocaust, she never lost hope that she would survive and rebuild her life. She lived life with verve and humor and taught us that the ultimate resistance is joy. For me, hope can be found in the form of teachers dedicated to teaching the Holocaust and students who commit to taking their learning to future generations. Teachers like Elisa Parcells, who taught students in juvenile detention, students typically overlooked in Holocaust education efforts, and captured their attention through a survivor testimony that emphasized that we must never be bystanders. It is the silence that did the harm. Teachers like Santo Galatiotto taught resistance to his middle school students through the story of using milk cans in the Warsaw Ghetto as time capsules to ensure that the plight of the Jews would be remembered. He asked students, what is one thing you want to share with the world? Teachers like Lauren Francesi, a leader in state social studies initiatives, who recently suggested that high school social studies standards be rewritten to include that students will recognize the history of anti-Semitism in historical and contemporary context. When you hear a witness, you become a witness. Student Chandel Samuels attended a program with survivor Ruth Lazowski at Jamoki Academy in Hartford. At age 12, Chandel wrote an amazing piece on why we all need to study the Holocaust. She then spoke at a conference with me to nearly 1,000 educators and received a standing ovation. Her words were so moving that I asked her to share them with a group of survivors. When they heard her words, the tears rolled down their cheeks. It helped to heal their hearts and souls to know that a child heard their pain and was willing to become involved as a leader to fight hate and prejudice in the world. So here is your call to action. There is no question that we are living in very challenging times. It is easy to be discouraged. Anti-Semitism and hate are on the rise. ADL reported a 100% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in Connecticut in 2022. We must take action. Here are 3 strategies that ADL suggests. 1, speak up. It is not impossible. If something is not impossible, you have to find a way to do it. That was Nicholas Winton, of blessed memory, who saved 600 Jewish children. Again, if something is not impossible, you have to find a way to do it. And a child survivor named Chaya Roth teaches that when you are frightened, do not be afraid to shout and yell. Ask for help, someone may hear you. As a young child, she was taken in a roundup and yelled, I am not Jewish, my mother will be mad, and convinced the guard to take her home. A child speaks up, a Nazi guard is confronted. This child had the wherewithal to come up with a strategy to save her own life. How can you speak up? What will you speak about? Share facts and your experience. We must share the statistics of our present-day anti-Semitism. We must share the need for Holocaust education. In my opinion, stories are even more important than that data. Share your experience. How does anti-Semitism impact you? If you are concerned about the rise in anti-Semitism, explain why. And remember, anti-Semitism does not define Judaism. It is a consequence, not a cause. So share the beauty of Judaism. To be a Jew is to love life, redemption, peace, and justice. Share about that to your neighbors, to your colleagues. And for people who aren't Jewish, share why the issue of anti-Semitism is important to you. And finally, show strength and act. And this is a story I just learned. In 1939, a group of Hasidic Jews in Lublin, Poland were lined up against a barbed wire fence by SS soldiers. The sadistic commandant then ordered them to sing themselves to their own deaths. One of the men began to improvise a tune. Wir wen sie Iberland, Iberland, Iberland. We will outlive them. He sang it over and over. Witnesses reported that the song spread quickly through the group, and soon everyone was dancing and singing those words. The commandant at first laughed, but then he realized they weren't accommodating him. They were defeating him. He ordered them to stop, but they continued. Even when the SS troops charged at them, swinging whips and clubs. They died taunting Nazis with the idea that Jews will outlive them, and they were right. Jewish life and values will endure. As Jews, as Americans, as people of integrity who want a better future for our children and our grandchildren, we must start by taking steps like these. 1, learn and teach about spiritual and cultural resistance and its relevance today. 2, share Holocaust stories and lessons to anyone who will listen, and not just on Yom Hashoah. 3, if you are a second or third generation, volunteer at schools, churches, synagogues, libraries with community groups, and tell your family story. 4, for Jews, be proud of being Jewish. Talk to your family about this. Not only your family, but your friends and neighbors and colleagues. And for those who are not Jewish, please be an ally. What will you do?
Thank you, Margie. That theme of spiritual resistance transitions perfectly into the next part of our program as we move to music, and we'll be led by Rabbi Wainhouse in the partisan song.
Thanks, Margie. That's the best example of resistance. Clearest embodiment of resistance were the amazing partisans, young people your age, who found themselves in the forests of Europe. They were able to escape the shtetls in the cities, and they were able to obtain weapons and amazingly fought back, literally fought back, and composed songs of resistance. This is probably the most famous of the partisan songs, and actually it's become an anthem. So please join with me as I sing these words in their original Yiddish. So it came all as du gehst dem letzten Weg. Together, please. Again. So it came all as du gehst dem letzten Weg. Den Himmeln bleien verstellen bleue Tag. Wann kommen wird noch unser ausgebenkte Schau? Es wird appoint on unser Trott mir seinen da. Wann kommen wird noch unser ausgebenkte Schau? Es wird appoint on unser Trott mir seinen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weißen Land von Schnee. Wir seinen da mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Und wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut, wird das sprotzt von unser Gure, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut, wird das sprotzt von unser Gure, unser Mut. So, kein Molas, du gehst den letzten Weg.
Den Himmeln bleiben, verstellen, neue Tag. Willkommen, wird unsere ausgebänkte Show. Es wird ab heute an unser Tag, wir seien da. Willkommen, wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird ab heute an unser Trott, our feet will thunder. While wir seien da, because we are still here. Anahu Kol. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Wainhouse. Sticking with the Yiddish, we'll now invite forward child survivors, Remedy, to recite the Ella Eskara, the memorial prayer, remembering all of our loved ones. And unfortunately, the number of Yiddish speakers out there is, that in our community is somewhat dwindling, but keeping in mind, trying to keep the memory alive, through keeping the language alive. So having Rabbi Wainhouse and Nim here sharing these words in Yiddish, we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Ele Eskera. Wir werden sein Gedenken mit der heiligen Fort. Nur wir sind im Licht noch die 6 Millionen heilige Leute in der Schomes, welche seien gegangen al Kiddush Hashem. Die verschnittene Lebens von Frauen und Männern, was die Sonne hat vertilgt, die unschuldige Kinder, wenn es lichtige Augen der Erzieher hat ausgelöschen. All die von seinen umgebracht gewordenen Gaskammern und Karzers, ausgegangen in die Gassen und belagerte Ghettos, die von seinen ausgegangenen Flammen, geworfen geworden in Feuren Lebendigkeit, und wo seinen umgekommen mit die größlichsten Misses unter Säumes Gesang. Wir wollen euch nicht vergessen, Zachor ve'al Pistein, soll abgemerkt werden der Nomen und das Gedächtnis von dem Mörder, Schänder und Verschwächer von menschlichen Mien, Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Nur wir euch gedenken und nicht vergessen, die Verschwörung von Stillschwein in der Welt. Wenn der Säune hat gesprochen, Verwüstung und Tod, hat die Welt geschwiegen mit herzlosem Gelächter. Und natürlich öfter mit stiller Hanoi. Blind seinen Gewinn seine Augen, treu seine Ohren, stumm der Zunge und Stein der Herz. Obhitten wollen wir dem heiligen Onde von unsere Kedoshim, Ladei Adolam. We will remember them with a holy sense of awe. Let us light candles for the 6 million innocent souls who died for the name of the Lord, for the lives of men and women who were exterminated by the enemy, the innocent children whose bright eyes were extinguished by the murderer, all who were in gas chambers and trenches, liquidated in the streets of besieged ghettos, those who were lost in flames and thrown alive into graves, and those who suffered gruesome deaths under an enemy's fateful sentence. We will also not forget, Zachor ve'al tishkach b'shnayim. Remember and do not forget doubly. Let the names and the memory of the murderers be erased, those who disgraced and demeaned the human race. Remember what Amalek did to you. Let us also remember and not forget the conspiracy of silence throughout the world. While the enemy spread devastation and death, the world was silent with heartless unconcern, and some maybe perhaps with quiet satisfaction. Their eyes were blind
their tongues silent, and they had hearts of stone. We will preserve the holy memory of our martyrs forever and ever.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And as we remember all the survivors, we also take a moment to remember his mother, Anna Cooperstock, who passed away this past year, and the in memoriam section in the back of our programs, to read a little bit about his mother, who was part of the survivor community here in New Haven for so many years. And I'll invite back forward Rabbi Wainhouse to lead us in the recitation of Psalm 121.
Psalm 121 was written by an unknown poet who was making his way, or her way, to Jerusalem and actually to the Temple Mount, looking for answers to questions, which were gnawing at her heart or his heart. And one question receives an immediate answer: from whence shall my help come? That question receives the answer: my help shall come from the one who, the power who brought heaven and earth into existence, the power who brought these mountains and hills into being. I hold in my hand, as I always do, this amazing volume that was able to escape the Holocaust along with its owner just in the nick of time. This is actually a woman's prayer book, a woman's siddur. It looks voluminous, but actually most of it is Yiddish translation. Women, many women in Europe did not learn much Hebrew, certainly didn't learn much about translating Hebrew. And so as a result, these prayer books were quite popular among women, called Teichsiddur, siddurs in translation. And so I'll read the translation as well as the Hebrew and the English. Shir Lamaloi. Esa einai elehorim. I lift up my eyes to these mountains. Ich hoi boif meine Augen zu dir. Zu sehen, von wannen wird kommen mein Hilf. Aber, ich hab nicht von keinem kein Hilf. My help comes from the one who created these mountains and these hills, the one who brought heaven and earth into existence. Ezri me'im Adonai, osei shamayim ba'aretz, al yidei lamot raglecha, al yonu shomerecha. Behold, the one, the guardian of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian, surely your shade, surely your shelter at your side. Deine Hilfe, deine Fies werden nicht los und euch nicht werden. Gott, dein Hitter, tut nicht tremmeln. Gott, der Hitter von Israel, tut keinmal nicht tremmeln und nicht schlafen. Gott ist dein Hitter, Gott steht bei deiner rechten Hand. Gegen sein auf dir, also wie Aschotten ist megen vor der Himmel. Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai Tzilcha, Yad Yeminecha, Yoim HaShemesh Lo Yakeko, Yariyach Baloilo, Adonai Yishmorcha Mikol Ro, Yishmor Es Nafshecha. The Lord will guard you against all evil. Surely the Lord will guard you, body and soul. Guard your going out and coming in now and forevermore. Adonai Yishmor, say Yishmor to be called Ro. Yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai Yishmor says, God, that is hidden in dein Reis gehen, in Weg und in dein Kommen und heim bis ewig. Adonai Yishmor says, may I be yad, my Lord. Lord, surely guard you going out.
Thank you, Rabbi Wainhouse. As we move towards the conclusion of our program, I would be remiss if I did not extend really our incredible gratitude to Becky, to this congregation, to Rabbi Woodward and Shefkin, the president, who were willing to host this this commemoration today in the event of rain, which of course turned out to be an event of rain. And we're honored to have Rabbi Woodward lead us in the Kalmale, the memorial prayer, which you can find on the next page after Psalm 121, memorial prayer Kalmale. I ask you all to please rise and pray.
Valevachami, Shochein Bamromi, Ametsem Luchan Kona, Tachat Kanfei Hashina, B'malot, Shikim V'Tovim, Or Havakia Miriu Mazirim, Et Yishmot Achilu B'nei Israel, Roshiv Torim, Shenachlu B'Deroskim, Benifshachu Benafshachu Damab Auschwitz, Maidanek Treblinka, Nashar Machanot Hashma Be'Europa, Shenaharbu, Benisrafu, Nishchatu, Benikbaru Chaim, Bechol Mitzvot Mishonot Askariot, Al Kiddush Hashem. Ba'avur she'anachnu b'neihem u'bnotehem, achihem ve'achiotehem, Gardim tzedakah ba'az haskarat mishmotehem, Adin ve'evu chatam, B'chein ba'al harachamim, Yasirein b'seter yapav le'olamim, V'yitzror b'tzvut ha'chaim, Et nishmotam, Adonai Hunaflatam, Ayalua Shalom, Al Mishkaman, May God mercy and health and grant perfect peace under the wings of the Shekinah, the lofty levels of the holy and pure ones, shine like the glory of the firmament, the souls of our brothers and sisters of the Jewish people, holy and pure, without the hands of murderers, whose blood was spilled in Auschwitz, Majdanek, Treblinka, and the other camps of destruction in Europe, who were slain, burned, and slaughtered, who were burned and buried alive in extreme cruelty, sanctification of the divine. For we, their sons, their daughters, their brothers, their sisters, contribute charity and remembrance of their souls. May their resting place be in paradise. Therefore, that may the Master of Mercy shelter them beneath his wings for eternity. May God bind their souls in the bond of life. God is their inheritance, and may they repose in peace in their resting place. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Woodward. I ask you to please remain standing as we really are incredibly honored to have Izzy Judah here, survivor, who shares his stories with so many students around our area. And just a privilege, as I mentioned, my grandparents were survivors, and as fewer and fewer survivors from that generation are around, we feel so honored and privileged to still be in the presence of people like Izzy, keep that memory alive. So Izzy will lead us in a special Kaddish in memory of the 6th moment.
Yitkadal Yisrael, V'yitkadesh Warsaw, Shemei Rabbah Auschwitz, Ve'alma Divrave V'sei Dachal, V'yamlech Malchutei Hochemal, Chayechon Yomechon Babiyah, Chayedachol Beit Yisrael Baghdad, Ba'adallah V'zman Paris Hebron, V'yimu Amen. Yehei Shmei V'cholam V'mei Chomay. V'korach V'yisabach V'yitzion. V'yita'eri Damam. V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitzion. תעלה תתעלה תבליטה, שמי קודשה בליכו, ברדינגלס, לאלה ולאלה וילנה, וכל ברכה ושירתה, קושה, תשבחתה ונחמתה מסדה, כמירנדי עלמה ג'רוזלם, ואימו אמן, יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחי עולנו ועל כל ישראל ואימו אמן. עושה שלום רבה, יעשה שלום, עולנו ועל כל ישראל ואימו אמן.
Also, going to remain standing as we close our program with the singing of Hatikva, which is both Israel's national anthem, but also literally Hatikva means the hope. It's a reminder of our people's 3,000-year hope to be home in our lands, to be able to live autonomously. And we invite forward our BBYO group to lead us in the singing of Hatikva. You can find the transliteration on the back, toward the back of the program, draws the people.
Following Hatikva, please stay until the completion of the campus. That was everything.
Again, everyone, so much for being here today. Remembering Yom Hashoah,